Good day, boxing fans. Friday night in Moscow, Russia, South Africa's Thabiso Mchunu will be trying yet again in Russia to upend the professional career of a former amateur star. And we're talking about Muslim Gadzhimagomedov. Hey, I've said it, the name is a mouthful. But they'll be fighting in the 224-pound bridgerweight division. That's a division for small heavyweights, only recognized by the WBA and WBC. But that's beside the point. It's an intriguing fight. It's the upcoming youngster against the veteran. Can Mchunu resurrect his career, or is it just a little bit too late in the fight for him, and is it Gadzhimagomedov's time? If you want to break down the fight with me, stick around. Thabiso Mchunu has won twice in Russia. He outpointed a faded veteran in Denis Lebedev, and then he did it a few years back in 2021 when he beat Olympic gold medalist Evgeny Tishchenko. Can he do it yet again? Now, this time the momentum is not on the side of Thabiso Mchunu. He's a 30-fight veteran, 23-7. Gadzhimagomedov has only had 5 pro fights, but he's been a gold medalist at the Amateur World Championship. He's been a silver medalist at the Olympics. So he very much comes with a pedigree similar to Evgeny Tishchenko that Mchunu upset in 2021. But now, as I've said, Mchunu, the momentum is not on his side. He had a challenge for the WBC world title against Ilunga Junior Makabu. He lost a split decision. Many thought he did enough to edge it. I was one of them, but it didn't go his way. It was a close fight. And then he had more than a year's worth of more than 2 years worth of inactivity. He was out of the ring for a long time. He came back last year, beginning of last year, and he dropped a close decision to Argentinian Yamil Peralta. Now, I thought that was a close fight, but I thought Peralta out-hustled Mchunu in that fight. His timing seemed a little bit off. He struggled a bit with the awkwardness of Peralta, and he didn't throw enough punches, you know. He was just a little bit too conservative in his punch output, which I thought cost him against Makabu as well. But that was his last fight, and now we are almost a year later, and he's now taking on Gadzhimagomedov. I'm going to keep trying to say that name right. I hope I'm getting close. Well, is Gadzhimagomedov with his amateur pedigree too much for Thabiso Mchunu at this stage of his career? As the opportunities pass him by, or can Mchunu, who's sometimes a bit of an in and outer, once again resurrect his career? Let me know in the comment section. Now, if you look at Thabiso Mchunu, he's a short, stocky, muscular fighter, and most fighters of that sort of physicality will be come forward, pressure fighters, brawlers, punchers. You know, they'll have a very aggressive style. But Mchunu is quite exceptional. He's a southpaw, and he's a boxer primarily. He likes to counter punch. He likes to box behind his jab. And that's unusual for such a short, stocky guy. So he'll have a height and reach disadvantage against Gadzhimagomedov. But, you know, he's always at a height and reach disadvantage. Even though they've got vastly different styles, that's like saying Mike Tyson is at a height and reach disadvantage. They always are. So that shouldn't be a factor for Thabiso Mchunu. Will the southpaw style bother Gadzhimagomedov? It might, you know, but with that sort of amateur pedigree, you've seen a southpaw before. We know what Mchunu is. What does Gadzhimagomedov bring to the table? Now, the Russian, he's primarily a boxer from the footage that I could see. He's already outpointed another South African, Akani Puzi. In his last fight, he won a wide decision over German-based fighter Leon Hoff. And that was sort of a plodding, come forward, slow fighter, and he just outboxed him the way he wanted. And then he fought Zhao Xinjiang, a Chinese fighter with very little defense. And, you know, you can't just keep taking punches, and Gadzhimagomedov managed to stop him. But, you know, if I look at Gadzhimagomedov, and if I have to, I think he's a better fighter than Evgeny Tishchenko, the last major winner Thabiso Mchunu had there in Russia. He's got a very good educated jab, but he varies. You know, it's a quick jab. He throws it from the bottom. He throws it straight. He throws it in various ways and he varies the speed with it as well. Very good pesky jab, that's the thing. And he works off that jab, and he does a lot of, he feints very well. He comes in behind a lot of feints. He has that perfect straight right. Sometimes he overextends on it a little bit. That can be an opportunity for Mchunu. And he's busy, and he throws a variety of punches. He'll come up with uppercuts and sort of hooks in between the long shots, and then he'll use his feet to get out of the way. He's 6'4.5", so he's gonna be towering over Thabiso Mchunu, but Thabiso is used to it. So what must Thabiso Mchunu do to win this fight? It's on the road. You've got to win it clearly. And I think firstly, take away the jab of Gadzhimagomedov. That will, and let's see what Gadzhimagomedov does with him then. You know, because I think Thabiso Mchunu will certainly be his most experienced opponent to date. Will be his best opponent to date. And Mchunu has got this one thing that he does very well. He can take away a tall fighter's jab and be the shorter fighter, jab the taller fighter by just doing a step jab sort of by his right, and then he's out of range again, and he steps underneath his opponent's longer arms. He jabs to the chest, jabs to the body, jabs to the head, and then he starts countering you. Now, that is the key. If Thabiso Mchunu can beat the longer jab of Gadzhimagomedov, we're going to have an interesting fight. And Gadzhimagomedov is going to have to change gears and show us something different that he hasn't shown us up till now. So I think that's key for Thabiso Mchunu. And Gadzhimagomedov also drags the lead hand a bit down, and Mchunu, being a southpaw, could look for his own straight left or his right hook coming through that opening if he can step in quick enough. Now, it's a fight that they didn't have a lot of notice for. Sean Smith said there in an article that I've read that was reported, they've had a good training camp, but they didn't have a full 8 weeks. I don't like that. Thabiso Mchunu sometimes has fitness issues, and you know, he's been out of the ring for a while. I don't think the inactivity is the biggest deal, because when he beat Thaschenko, he was out for 2 years, and he came back just under or over 2 years, and he came back. He beat Thaschenko, and I think the other thing is when he fought Peralta, he also had a long inactivity there against Peralta in his last fight. It showed, but I don't think just under a year's worth of inactivity is going to be an issue for Thabiso Mchunu. I do think, though, if I look at the Peralta fight, it could just have been that he was rusty. It could just have been that it was an awkward style. Peralta is very awkward. Gadzhimagomedov is not as awkward. He's a little bit more conventional than the Argentinian, and not such a spoiler. So I think the inactivity is not going to be a factor. I do worry about whether his fitness is going to be up for it, since it didn't have a full 8 weeks to train here. In the Peralta fight, he looked a bit conservative. In his output, his timing looked a little bit off. He is older now. He is now going on 36, 37, I think. So, and he's got a kind of boxing style that you need your reflexes for. So that is what worries me a bit about Thabiso Mchunu here. You know, because Gadzhimagomedov is a busy fighter. He lets his hands go. He moves well on his feet. And the busyness and letting his hands go more, I think that he's busier than Evgeny Thaschenko, and I think that's not the greatest thing for Thabiso Mchunu. And the other thing that I don't like is Gadzhimagomedov is the WBA's World Bridgerweight champion, the 224-pound division, only recognized by the WBA and WBC. Whether you recognize it or not doesn't really matter, but it's at a higher weight division now. It's not for the title, because Mchunu lost his last fight against Peralta, so it's a non-title fight. But you know, I don't think the extra weight is a good thing for Thabiso Mchunu. You know, as I've said, the height and the reach disadvantage he always has. That's not a problem. But I don't think Mchunu, with his stocky frame, needs extra weight. I think he's definitely is a guy who should be a cruiserweight. So I don't like the extra weight that Gadzhimagomedov will have over Mchunu. He might be a little bit strong for Thabiso. Thabiso is a very strong fighter, but now you're fighting a guy who is bigger. So I don't like the weight, the higher weight for Thabiso Mchunu. I don't like the busyness of Gadzhimagomedov. Having said that, Mchunu is by far the most experienced opponent. He's been in against the very best. He's even been in against Alexander Usyk against in a WBO title challenge. So Mchunu is by far the experienced, by far the trickiest opponent that Gadzhimagomedov is facing. I just think the timing and the weight is the momentum of the timing when they're fighting each other, and the weight is in favor of Gadzhimagomedov. So you guys must tell me in the comment section, who do you think wins this fight? And you guys must also please remember to share it among your boxing contacts. But in the end, yeah, I'm rooting for my guy Thabiso Mchunu. I'm hoping he pulls it off against Gadzhimagomedov in Russia. I think he's a very live underdog in the fight. I think he's got a good chance. But if I'm pushed here, having looked at Gadzhimagomedov, he hasn't, you know, I don't think he's a big puncher. You know, couldn't really get rid of Akani Puzi, who gets intimidated when guys put him under pressure and rattles him a bit. Couldn't move Akani Puzi. So I don't think he did move Zhang, but Zhang was fighting with his face unprotected and all of that. And he couldn't really get a guy like Leon Half out there who's been stopped before. So I don't think Gadzhimagomedov punching power is good enough to get Thabiso Mchunu out of there. I just think he's fresher, he's younger, his foot movement together with his work rate. I think a guy with that amateur record would have had a southpaw style, maybe not a stocky short southpaw that can box as well as Mchunu. But I just think the timing and the weight is favouring Gadzhimagomedov, so I'm going to go with Gadzhimagomedov to win a competitive decision here over Thabiso Mchunu. I hope I am wrong. And that's it from me. But all the best to Thabiso Mchunu. I hope he pulls off a third victory in Russia. My head tells me Gadzhimagomedov is going to win this one on points. But that's it from me. Thank you to all those who have subscribed. Please remember to subscribe if you feel so inclined. And until I see you again, remember to keep those hands up.